"Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The hotel concierge's voice was calm but cold, slicing through the air of the luxury lounge like a quiet knife. His posture said everything rigid back, tight jaw, the kind of fake professionalism that only reveals contempt beneath the surface. The old man blinked behind thick glasses, confused, his hand still resting on the polished bar. He was dressed in an old corduroy jacket, sleeves a little too short now, and worn leather shoes that looked like they'd walked the world, and then some. His white beard was trimmed, but uneven. He looked out a place not dirty, not dangerous, just ... forgotten. "I was just waiting for someone," he said softly. The concierge raised an eyebrow. "Unless you have a room or a reservation, you can't wait here. This is for guests only. Please don't make this difficult." The room shifted. A few people glanced over their newspapers. Others pretended not to notice. No one spoke up, except one dot in a leather booth, tucked in the farthest corner. 6 men sat around a coffee table. Quiet, clean-cut. Broad shoulders beneath tight-fitted sweaters. Their eyes were sharp, scanning without moving. A different breed. One of them, a tall man with weathered hands and a silver ring on his fingers, lowly leaned forward. His gaze didn't leave the old man. He stood. The concierge hesitated. His eyes caught something on the man's wrist. An old tattoo, dark and unmistakable. A trident. An anchor, wings, Navy SEAL. And then another man stood, and another, until all 6 were on their feet. They didn't raise their voices. They didn't point fingers. But their presence alone made the room fall silent. The concierge swallowed hard. "I of these men are with you, sir." The tall SEAL didn't answer him. He walked straight to the old man. His boots made a deep, echoing thud on the marble floor. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. He stopped in front of the old man. "And extended his hand, sir," he said, with the voice of someone who had given orders that echoed across valleys. "Are you Master Chief Alan Reyes?" The old man blinked, his lips parted in disbelief. "Yes, but that was a long time ago." The SEAL snapped into a salute. "It's an honor." The old man's shoulders straightened just a little. "Not from pride, from muscle memory." The concierge stepped back awkwardly. "I didn't know." He didn't say who he was. The SEAL didn't look at him. You didn't ask. You just saw what you wanted to see. One of the other SEALs stepped forward, offering a respectful nod to the elder. "You're not leaving, Chief. You're staying. With us." Alan's eyes welled instantly. "You don't have to do that, boys. I was just passing through." "We do," the first SEAL said, "because you went first." A nearby guest coughed and looked away, embarrassed. Another lowered her phone, guilt washing over her face. The quiet had become deafening. A server rushed to pull over a chair. Another SEAL gently took Alan by the arm, guiding him like a younger brother would walk his elder. They didn't just make room, they made space for him, his stories, his silence, his sacrifice. He sat surrounded by 6 warriors who knew what it meant to carry weight that can't be measured in medals. They ordered fresh coffee, a plate of warm bread. No one rushed the moment. As the room settled again, the waitress returned with refills. Alan looked around, his voice shaking not from age, but from being seen. "You boys don't know me," he said. "I'm nobody." One of the SEALs leaned in. "You're why we're still here." And for the first time in years, Alan Reyes didn't feel invisible. Outside, the city buzzed with traffic and urgency. But inside the lounge, time slowed, because some moments demand it, some people deserve it. The story, however, had only just begun. They didn't ask him questions. They didn't pry. They just listened. Alan sat surrounded by 6 silent shadows, each one carrying their own ghosts, and yet every pair of eyes was locked on him like he was the only man who mattered in the world. He spoke slowly at first, like his throat hadn't had company in a while. "Vietnam, 68. We were just kids," he started, his voice a raspy hum. "I was the comms guy. Jungle was thick, hot, always raining. Couldn't hear yourself think. We lost Corporal Finch on the 3rd day. Sniper got him, right through the neck. Number..." One interrupted. No one touched their phones. Even the people at nearby tables leaned in slightly, as if drawn by something sacred. Alan chuckled bitterly. "We were told the mission was a week tops. We didn't come out for 21 days, no supplies, ate leaves, drank from puddles, Half of us came back with parasites. The SEALs nodded, not in sympathy, but in understanding. A younger man with deep scars trailing down his left arm asked gently, "How'd you get out?" Alan paused, looked down at his hands, as if trying to remember if they were still his. "We didn't all, only 5 of us made it to the extraction point. The rest," he looked up, "you learn to live with it, or at least pretend you do." Silence. Wrapped around the table like a flag-folded tight dot, another SEAL leaned back slowly. "That's why we're sitting here." Alan blinked. "What do you mean?" "You already did what most never could," the man replied. "We just picked up where you left off." Alan reached for his glass of water, but his hand trembled too much to lift it. One of the SEALs steadied it for him. "I used to think people forgot us," Alan whispered. "These days, I'm invisible." "You're not invisible," the first SEAL said. "You're the reason we exist." At that moment, the lounge manager arrived, mid-30s, corporate smile, expensive watch. He was clearly briefed about what had just happened. His face flushed with embarrassment. "Master Chief Reyes." He began, trying to smile. "We'd be honored to offer you and your companions your meals on the house." Alan shook his head. "No need for charity, son. I wasn't even planning to eat, just wanted a warm chair and a few minutes out of the rain." The manager stammered, "It's not charity, sir. It's respect." One of the SEALs looked over, voice calm but firm. "He didn't ask for a handout. He's earned every seat in this room." Another added, "You don't pay a man back for bleeding. You stand beside him." The manager's expression shifted. The corporate mask cracked slightly. "Yes, sir, of course. I apologize." As the manager retreated, the old man leaned back in his chair and let out a deep sigh, the kind that had been held in for decades. They ate quietly. After that, bread, eggs, coffee, the kind of meal that becomes holy simply by who it's shared with. Alan didn't say much more. But what he did say about the nights filled with gunfire, the silence after a brother stopped breathing, the weight of names engraved into black granite in D.C. It settled into the bones of everyone listening. These were men trained to resist torture, to hold their breath underwater, to jump into gunfire if it meant saving one of their own. But not one of them could stop the sting behind their eyes when Alan spoke, because they knew. They knew that time doesn't erase sacrifice. It just hides it under newer wars and younger uniforms. And in that upscale lounge, filled with suits and cigars, an old man reminded them of what true valor sounded like, not shouted, just spoken like a memory too heavy to carry alone. When the plates were cleared and the coffee gone cold, Alan tried to stand. His knees protested. One SEAL moved to help, but Alan waved him off. "I still got a little left in me," he said. With a crooked grin, they stood to all 6 of them, as if it were instinct. One of them grabbed Alan's coat. Another draped their jacket over his shoulders, as the sky outside still poured. Alan turned toward the door, his shoes tapping lightly on the marble floor. But one of the SEALs stopped him. "Where you headed, Chief?" "Shelter a few blocks away," Alan replied. "They've got a cot. Cold, but better than outside." The SEAL shook his head. "Not tonight." Alan looked up, confused. "Then where?" "Home," the man said simply. The old man froze. "You?" "Boys don't need to. We're not doing it because we need to," the SEAL interrupted. "We're doing it because we should have done it sooner." And just like that, they walked beside him. No audience, no spotlight, just honor. The cold slapped against their faces as they stepped outside, wind catching the edge of Alan's coat. Rain still drizzled from the sky, soft and steady, like a song only he seemed to hear. They didn't rush him. One walked in front. 2 beside him. The rest trailed quietly, watching the street, alert but unthreatening. They weren't guarding him from danger. They were guarding his dignity. A black SUV waited by the curb, doors already open. One of the SEALs helped Alan in, careful of his back, folding a blanket over his legs like a son would a father. The ride was silent at first. The city lights painted blurred streaks across the windows. Alan stared out, hands folded in his lap. One of the SEALs finally broke the silence. "You got any family, Chief?" Alan's mouth tightened. "No one left. My wife passed in '03, no kids, just a few pictures, and the boys back then. They're all gone now." He said it plainly, as if it no longer stung. But everyone in that SUV felt the echo of loneliness between his words. The seal sitting closest nodded slowly. "Then tonight, you're with us." Alan looked over, eyes wet but steady. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not?" came the reply. "You're the reason we made it home." They pulled up to a modest two-story house tucked between larger homes. Porch light, glowing warm, curtains drawn. One of the seals helped Alan out and walked him up the steps like it was nothing. Inside, the living room was simple framed photos. On the wall, boots by the door, and a fire already crackling in the hearth. "You can take the guest room," the man said. "Bathrooms to the left. Fresh clothes on the bed." Alan hesitated at the doorway like a man who'd forgotten what comfort looked like. "I can sleep on the couch." "No, sir," the seal said. "You've earned better than that." And Alan nodded because he was too tired to argue, and two moved to push back. He stayed the night, then one night turned into two, and two became a week. The house became familiar, the clatter of pans in the morning, the smell of black coffee, the laughter between men who had once thought they couldn't laugh anymore. Alan didn't talk much unless asked, but when he did, the room went still, not because they pitied him, but because they respected the silence. Between his words, he started helping out where he could, folding laundry, tending to the garden out back. Said it made him feel useful. The seals didn't correct him. They let him feel exactly that. A few days later, one of the men filed paperwork, quietly, without fanfare. By the end of the week, Alan Reyes was no longer sleeping in shelters or wandering into hotel lobbies. He had a room, a family, a purpose, and none of it made the news. Because real honor doesn't crave headlines. It wasn't until weeks later, at a small gathering of veterans, that someone told the story. A reporter overheard it by accident. A wrinkled man in a folding chair described how 6 warriors stood in silence for someone no one else noticed. "How do you know that story's true?" Someone asked. The man just smiled, "Because I was there. I was the man they stood for." It spread quietly after that. No hashtags, no viral clips, just whispers across barbershops, VFW halls, and kitchen tables. About how one day, in a world too fast to look back, 6 Navy SEALs reminded everyone what it meant to truly stand for something. And to this day, if you ask Alan about it, he'll brush it off. "I didn't do anything special," he'll say, but the 6 men who stood that day would disagree, because they weren't standing for a war story or a medal or a memory. They were standing for a man who never asked to be remembered, only to be seen, and in that act of quiet defiance, they showed the world something it forgets far too often, that character still matters, that silence can speak louder than shouting, that the deepest kind of respect is not demanded freely by those who understand its weight, and that in a world where so many chase power, it's still the humble who carry the most honor. So next time you see an old man sitting alone, maybe don't walk past, maybe stop and listen, because you never know whose shoulders you're standing on. And if this story moved you even a little, then share it, not for views, not for numbers, but to keep the memory alive of a man named Alan Reyes and the 6 silent giants who stood for him. This is Hidden Sparks. If you're still with us, drop the word respect in the comments below. Tell us the name of a hero who deserves to be remembered.